Part 1, Section 61, Gross Income Defined. 26 CFR Section 1.612, Compensation for Services, including fees, commissions, and similar items. Also, Rev. Rule 2007-19. Purpose. The Internal Revenue Service is aware that some taxpayers are attempting to reduce or eliminate their federal income tax liability by claiming that compensation received in exchange for personal services is not taxable income. These taxpayers often attempt to avoid their federal income tax liability by failing to file federal income tax returns or by failing to report all income from wages or other compensation on their federal income tax return. They often furnish Forms W-4, Employee Withholding Allowance Certificates, on which they claim excessive withholding allowances or claim complete exemption from withholding. In addition, they often claim deductions from gross income for personal, living and family expenditures in order to reduce the tax liability related to wages or other compensation. 2. The service is aware that some promoters and return preparers are advising or recommending that taxpayers take these or other meritless positions. This revenue ruling emphasizes to taxpayers, promoters and return preparers that wages and other compensation received in exchange for personal services are taxable income subject to federal income tax. Any argument that such compensation is not taxable income has no merit and is frivolous. The service is committed to identifying taxpayers who attempt to avoid their federal tax obligations by taking frivolous positions. The service will take vigorous enforcement action against these taxpayers and against promoters and return preparers who assist taxpayers in taking these frivolous positions. Frivolous returns and other similar documents submitted to the service are processed through the service's frivolous return program. As part of this program, the service determines whether taxpayers who have taken frivolous positions have filed all required tax returns, computes the correct amount of tax and interest due, and determines whether civil or criminal penalties should apply. The service also determines whether civil or criminal penalties should apply to return preparers, promoters and others who assist taxpayers in taking frivolous positions and recommends whether an injunction should be sought to halt these activities. Other information about frivolous tax positions is available on the service website at www.irs.gov. 3. Issue. Whether taxpayer A may avoid federal income tax liability by maintaining that the Internal Revenue Code does not tax wages or other compensation received in exchange for personal services. Facts. Taxpayer A receives wages in exchange for personal services. Taxpayer A then does one or more of the following. 1. Furnishes a Form W-4 to the employer on which taxpayer A claims excessive withholding allowances or claims complete exemption from withholding. 2. Fails to file a federal income tax return. 3. Fails to report the wages on the federal income tax return. 4. Claims a refund for any withheld income tax. Or 5. Claims deductions for personal, living and family expenditures to offset the wages reported on the federal income tax return. Taxpayer A claims that compensation received for personal services is not subject to federal income tax. Arguments that wages are not subject to federal income tax take many forms including, but not limited to, the following. 1. A tax on wages is a direct tax subject to the provision in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution that requires that direct taxes be apportioned among the states by population. 2. Money received in exchange for personal labor constitutes an equal, non-taxable exchange of property. 4. 3. Taxable income from wages or other compensation for personal services can only be determined after deduction of the cost of providing the labor. Law and analysis. 1. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the United States in exchange for personal labor is a non-taxable exchange of property. These taxpayers sometimes rely on Sections 83 or 1001 of the Internal Revenue Code to support this argument. Section 83 provides for the determination of the amount to be included in gross income and the timing of the inclusion when property is transferred to an employee or independent contractor in connection with the performance of services. Section 1001 provides for the determination of the amount and timing of the recognition of gain or loss from the sale or other disposition of property. 6. Courts have universally rejected the argument that labor is property that 3. Section 7206 for making false statements on a return, statement, or other division. For further information regarding this revenue ruling, contact that office at 202-622-7950, not a toll-free call.